This is a crucial time for President of Ukraine Petro Poroshenko. It is the eve of the 2019 presidential elections in Ukraine, and Poroshenko is facing tremendous challenges, most notably dwindling support and rising antagonism toward him on the part of Ukrainian citizens. On September 30th, Poroshenko appeared in an interview on the popular CNN TV show GPS, hosted by journalist and political scientist Fareed Zakaria. Poroshenko was clearly aiming to create a positive image of himself, and he presented himself well. Unlike his predecessors, and also unlike President of the Russian Federation Vladimir Putin, he could take part in the interview without the need for an interpreter. He speaks English quite well, and his style of discourse resonates with a Western viewership, since it draws on Western democratic concepts and incorporates a belief in democratic values. Overall, Poroshenko showed himself to be a true, modern, authoritative, and persuasive European leader. And he touched on points that would matter to a Western audience, such as election meddling on the part of Russia. This is a problem of particular concern to him, as he is currently the target of alleged Russian smear campaigns, fake news blasts, and other destabilization efforts. In this regard, Poroshenko is certainly looking for sympathy from Western countries, whose political systems in recent times have been rocked by Russian election meddling efforts or scandals. He also tried to put a hopeful spin on the problem that he is facing back home, by thanking Putin for helping to galvanize the Ukrainian population against Russian aggression. However, while the people of Ukraine may be more European-minded than they were a few years ago, they are not necessarily fans of Poroshenko. It is hard to blame this problem entirely on Russian disinformation, though. In recent years, populism, fueled by outrage over the actual and perceived excesses of politicians, has taken hold not only in Ukraine, but in almost all of Europe and the West. It is on the wave of such populism, for instance, that Donald Trump, seemingly against all logic, was elected President of the United States. And in Ukraine, there is a very real possibility of populist Yulia Tymoshenko becoming president, as the Ukrainian people clearly do not seem to hold her past against her. It is hard to know what effects Zakaria's interview with Poroshenko might have. After all, Zakaria interviewed Putin in 2016, and, in my opinion, was rather ineffectual. Putin, although quite slippery, came out looking like a strongman, and this likely increases popularity back home. In contrast, Poroshenko presented himself effectively, but he will probably not experience any significant increase in the support of his people as a result of his CNN interview. And it is the people's support that he really needs. I'm not sure that there is anything that Poroshenko can say or do to win over his people at this point. If one looks at the recent provincial election in Ontario for an example of the populist trend, one sees that the incumbent offered all sorts of financial and social incentives to her citizenry, but the election still resulted in her party being nearly wiped off the political map anyway. But leaving all parallels aside and just looking at the situation at hand matter-of-factly, Poroshenko may not be the ideal option for Ukraine, but might he not be the best of the available options? I'm Tania Stech, and this was Ukraine in the News.
Канал 1+1 тепер доступний на Bell International Programming.